Hey everyone, and welcome back. Today we are systematically unpacking what is quite literally one of the most mind-bending mysteries out there regarding intelligent life. We're going to take a completely objective look at unidentified aerial phenomena, UAPs, alongside some seriously compelling biological anomalies. And honestly, this explainer might just completely flip how you view our own planet.
Okay, let's dive into this. For decades, right? Whenever we've looked up at the night sky and spotted something we just couldn't explain, our first instinct is to look to the stars. We automatically assume these objects have got to be extraterrestrial, visitors from some distant galaxy making the unimaginably long trek to Earth. But the theory we're exploring today asks a radically different question, one that forces us to look down instead of up. What if these UAPs aren't from outer space at all? What if they're actually from Earth's own distant past?
To get our heads around this, we need to define our foundational concept, the Ultraterrestrial Hypothesis. Championed by researchers like Hal Puthoff, this theory suggests that highly advanced beings might actually be indigenous to Earth. So they aren't time travelers from the future, and they definitely aren't spacemen. They're an advanced intelligence that evolved right here, on our planet, way before modern humans ever laid the first brick of a city. And the kicker? They've been sharing this rock with us the entire time.
So here is our roadmap to make sense of this rabbit hole. We'll hit 1. The Ultraterrestrial Hypothesis. 2. Evolution is not linear. 3. The convergent evolution clue. 4. Anomalies in ancient skulls. 5. Deep ocean hideouts. And finally, 6. The prime directive.
All right, Section 1. The Ultraterrestrial Hypothesis, coexisting with the past.
The absolute core speculation here is that an advanced civilization could easily predate modern humanity by 100,000, maybe even a million years. Just imagine an incredibly advanced society existing right alongside us, completely hidden in plain sight. This theoretical civilization might look at modern humanity sort of the way a parent looks at a messy teenager going through a really rough adolescence. They might just be observing us from the outside, letting us make our own mistakes, but keeping a very close watch to make sure we don't accidentally burn the house down. Like, say, stepping in to prevent a global nuclear disaster.
Let's move to Section 2. Evolution is not linear. The cycle of civilization. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how it forces us to rethink time.
We naturally tend to assume that biological and societal progression is just this straight, continuous line from cavemen directly to us with our smartphones. But the natural world is rarely linear. Actually, it's more like a series of cycles. Think about it. It might take 100,000 years to build a high-technology society. But what happens if a global catastrophe hits? Say, a massive ice age that gives an advanced civilization 1,000 years to prepare, literally forcing them to adapt and move their entire infrastructure underground just to survive. Now compare that to us. Modern humanity is roughly 50 years into our true high-technology adolescence, and we're already staring down the impending threat of a nuclear reset. Civilizations rise, they fall, and sometimes they're forced to hide.
Which brings us to a really fascinating rhetorical question. If an incredibly advanced civilization successfully survived an ice age by retreating underground or staying completely out of sight, and then, thousands of years later, primitive cavemen start emerging on the surface, would they interact with them? Or would they just sit back and watch? Okay, Section 3, the convergent evolution clue, biological blueprints. Let's ground these fringe concepts in some actual zoology.
There's this brilliant analogy from an ornithology museum at UNLV that really nails this. Think about two entirely different birds. On one hand, you have the South Pole penguin. On the other, you have an extinct bird from the North Pole called an auk. Even though these two existed on completely opposite ends of the Earth, totally isolated from one another, they looked practically identical in shape and color. They both developed the ability to fly in the water and swim. This is convergent evolution. It's what happens when different species independently evolve the exact same traits because they're adapting to similar environments.
And this brilliantly illustrates a crucial point about alleged alien encounters. People are constantly reporting seeing Nordic aliens, beings that look remarkably like humans from Scandinavia. And you have to wonder, why would an alien look exactly like us? Well, the humanoid shape is beautifully optimized by evolution to survive an Earth-specific environment. If an ancient species evolved on Earth, convergent evolution strongly dictates they'd likely possess a humanoid biological blueprint. They look like us because Earth makes things that look like us.
Which leads us right into Section 4, Anomalies in Ancient Skulls, Anatomical Mysteries. Let's talk physical evidence.
Let's break down the dense anatomical differences researchers have pointed out regarding those bizarre, elongated skulls found in places like Peru.
When comparing a normal human skull to these anomalous ones, there are some glaring differences. First, the sagittal suture. That's the literal seam on top of a human skull that allows a baby's brain to grow. In these anomalous skulls, it's completely missing. Second, the foramen magnum, which is where your spinal column enters the bottom of your skull, is positioned significantly further back than in a standard human. And finally, the shape isn't just slightly deformed from pressure, the bone structure is naturally dramatically elongated.
But here is the most staggering data point in all of this research. Some of these anomalous skulls possess a brain capacity up to 30% larger than a normal human's. Now, we know for a fact that historical human tribes engaged in the cultural practice of head binding. They used boards to flatten and shape the skulls of infants. But here's the thing. Head binding only changes the shape of the skull. It literally cannot magically generate 30% more internal brain volume.
So, the crucial point is this deeply provocative thought experiment. Did the very real human practice of head binding emerge as a sort of ancient cargo cult behavior? Think about it. Were early humans physically altering their own children to mimic a superior, highly advanced humanoid creature that was already coexisting with them? All right, Section 5. Deep Ocean Hideouts. Transmedium Survival. If these beings survived and evolved, where are they now?
I mean, if they've been here this whole time, where on Earth could they possibly be hiding today without us noticing the whole shebang? The answer might literally lie in the deep. Congressman Tim Burchett actually recently noted that authorities are aware of at least 5 specific locations in the deep ocean with ongoing, unexplained, anomalous activity.
But why the ocean? Well, if you want to avoid surface-level catastrophes like ice ages or meteor strikes, the deep ocean provides an absolutely incredibly stable environment. The theory suggests that over hundreds of thousands of years, an ultra-terrestrial species could have evolved entirely beyond a biological dependency on oxygen, or they might have engineered wildly creative habitats for themselves down there. And this aligns perfectly with modern sightings of transmedium crafts. We're talking about unexplained vehicles repeatedly observed moving seamlessly at high speeds from the air directly into the water, basically defying our entire understanding of physics.
Let's move on to our final piece of the puzzle. Section 6. The Prime Directive. Observation over interference.
Let's see how this builds a framework for understanding their behavior. Think about that famous concept from science fiction, the Star Trek Prime Directive. It dictates that an advanced spacefaring society must never, ever interfere with the natural development of a less advanced world. Now compare that to a real-world equivalent right here on Earth, North Sentinel Island. Today, modern humans actively observe the uncontacted tribes living there, but we strictly enforce laws to prevent anyone from making contact. We allow them to develop naturally. If an ultra-terrestrial species exists, they almost certainly view us the exact same way we view the Sentinelese.
The ultimate takeaway from navigating this mystery, straight from the source material, comes down to this. You need to have a very high tolerance for ambiguity. Exploring these concepts means accepting that we just don't have all the immediate answers. And you know what? It's perfectly okay to sit with the what-ifs, to observe the anomalies in our oceans and in ancient bones, and acknowledge the immense unknowns of our own biological history without immediately jumping to absolute conclusions.
Which leaves us with one final, deeply provocative question to ponder. If the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis actually hits the nail on the head, if we are unknowingly sharing this planet with an ancient, highly advanced intelligence that has just been quietly watching us stumble through our technological adolescence, when the time finally comes, are we truly ready to meet them? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. Keep your eyes open, keep asking questions, and I'll catch you on the next one.